Greetings, everyone. On behalf of the Healthy Caribbean Coalition, Healthy Caribbean Youth, its youth arm, the Caribbean Child Research Conference, and UNICEF Jamaica, I am thrilled to welcome you to Let's Talk About Obesity and the Right to Healthy School Food Environments in the Caribbean, acknowledging World Obesity Day, which was on March 4th. My name is Danielle Walwyn, and I am the Advocacy Officer at the Healthy Caribbean Coalition and coordinator of our youth arm, Healthy Caribbean Youth. Before we begin, I am thrilled to be wishing all the women on the call a happy International Women's Day, especially those in this space. If you look within healthy food policy advocacy spaces, you'll find a superhuman woman leading the charge. Your dedication, expertise, and passion are the driving forces behind the significant strides we've been making in this field. Today serves not only as a celebration, but also as a poignant reminder of the importance of inclusivity. It's imperative that we commit ourselves to ensuring that women and girls from all walks of life, regardless of age, race, and ability, are actively engaged and represented in every space we occupy. This holds particularly true in regions such as the Caribbean, where female-led households play a critical and pivotal role in shaping community health and well-being. Let's use this day to reaffirm our dedication to creating a more equitable and just world for women everywhere. This is just some of the beautiful faces. There are many more, especially who have contributed to the healthy food policy advocacy space. And so we're also here to talk about obesity. A recent Lancet article examining worldwide trends in underweight and obesity from 1990 to 2022 shows the Caribbean is topping the list once again in terms of high levels of obesity. Given International Women's Day, I'm spotlighting the changes in obesity between our girls in 1990 and 2022. The Caribbean is highlighted in the asterisks. You can see the significant difference between the first and second image. According to the 2024 World Obesity Atlas report, in 2022, 42.25 million children live with obesity in the region of the Americas. Even more concerning is the projection that this number could rise to 55.15 million by 2030 if we do not take decisive action. These figures are not just numbers. They represent our children, our future, and they should deeply concern us all. At this point, I'm inviting everyone to close their eyes and think of a child in your life. A child, your child, a sibling, niece, godchild, grandchild. And I want you to open your eyes. Is this the environment you want them to be surrounded by? Our progress towards implementing evidence-based policies to shape healthier food environments, including breastfeeding-friendly spaces and making healthy food more accessible, has been frustratingly slow. Of concern, too, is that according to the Lancet report that I mentioned earlier, the Caribbean in 2022 had one of the highest prevalence of underweight and obesity in school-aged children and adolescents. Thus, the need for healthy food to be accessible for all is critical. If we don't urgently implement the comprehensive suite of policies we know to be effective, this or a version of this will be our reality, and the obesity figures that I mentioned won't be far-fetched. A big part of the solution is the food environments where children spend most of their time. Here are some of the reasons why you, our attendees, think we should urgently implement policies to create healthy school food environments. Access to healthy foods is not a privilege, but a fundamental right that everyone deserves. A tool that has significantly strengthened our healthy food policy advocacy has been adopting a rights-based and equity-based approach. The Healthy Caribbean Coalition's rights-based approach is captured in our transformative new agenda and also addressed in our youth-led, youth-focused advocacy guide, Our Health, Our Right, a rights-based childhood obesity prevention agenda for the Caribbean. As we delve into today's discussions, I encourage each of you to keep these critical issues at the forefront of your minds. And so with that being said, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Dr. Christine Chin, who is a member of the Board of Directors of the Healthy Caribbean Coalition, board-certified obesity medicine specialist, and she also served as the World Obesity Federation Weight and Stigma Bias Group Working Group co-chair, which I had a pleasure of being part of as well. And from that working group, we actually published a paper, which you can find in the chat. Dr. Chin, over to you for welcoming remarks. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good morning, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and advocates for health and well-being. Today, as we mark World Obesity Day and International Women's Day, we are reminded of the critical importance of addressing the global epidemic of obesity. This year, our focus lies on the fundamental right to health within school food environments. As we delve into this crucial topic, we must recognize the choices we make today will shape the health outcomes of generations to come. In our audience today, we have a diverse group of individuals, representatives from the public sector, NGOs, non-communicable disease stakeholders, and esteemed members of the Ministries of Education and Health. Each one of us plays a vital role in shaping policies, implementing programs, and fostering environments that promote healthy eating habits among our youth. As a member of the Board of Directors of the Healthy Caribbean Coalition, I am truly honored to extend our gratitude to Healthy Caribbean Youth Arm, as well as the Caribbean Child Research Conference and UNICEF Jamaica, who are joint sponsors of this significant event. Your unwavering support and dedication to promoting health and well-being in the Caribbean region are truly commendable. As an obesity specialist, I was privileged to be the co-chairman of the Working Committee of the World Obesity Federation on Weight, Stigma, and Bias. Our position paper was published in January of this year in Obesity Reviews. So today, as we come together to address the critical issue of creating healthy school food environments, we must acknowledge the pivotal role that each one of us plays in shaping the future of our youth. By prioritizing people over profit and advocating for evidence-informed food policies, we can make a tangible difference in the lives of our Caribbean people. Governments and policymakers have a vital role in establishing clear guidelines and implementing policies endorsed by key stakeholders to improve food environments. The adoption of measures such as front-of-package nutrition warning labels, regulations on ultra-processed foods in schools, marketing restrictions, and fiscal policies such as taxation on sugar-sweetened beverages can significantly impact public health outcomes. Together, let us commit to creating school food environments that nurture our children's physical and mental well-being. By ensuring access to nutritious meals, promoting education on healthy eating habits, and fostering a culture of wellness within schools, we can empower our youth to make informed choices that will benefit them throughout their lives. May this webinar and our resourceful speakers inspire us all to take meaningful action toward creating healthier food environments in the schools and ensuring a brighter, healthier future for our youth. Thank you for your dedication in this important cause. Welcome and enjoy the webinar. Thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Chin. We can make a tangible difference. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Novia Condell, health specialist at UNICEF Jamaica. She wasn't able to join us in person today, so she has shared with us a video.
UNICEF Jamaica's country. Good morning, colleagues, friends, and youth advocates. It is a pleasure to be with you this morning, and I bring you greetings on behalf of UNICEF Jamaica's country team. Let me specially recognize our partners, Dr. Christine Chin from the Healthy Caribbean Coalition, and Ms. Tony Marie Cornwall from the Caribbean Child Research Conference. We are very pleased to partner with the HCC and the Caribbean Child Research Conference for this timely discussion being led by young people. For UNICEF, nutrition is a high priority issue. This year marks the 35th anniversary of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the CRC. As you know, the CRC enshrines the right of every child to the highest attainable standard of health, including the right to nutritious, sufficient, accessible, and safe food. This anniversary provides us with an opportunity to highlight the critical work that's being done by governments, international partners, non-governmental organizations, but also it gives us an opportunity to take a closer look at the work that we all need to do together to continue to promote and protect children's rights. In 2019, UNICEF's flagship report, The State of the World's Children, highlighted that millions of children globally are not growing and thriving well due to one or more forms of malnutrition. And these have included undernutrition, hidden hunger, and obesity. A major contributor to these challenges is that in their daily lives, children are continuously exposed and vulnerable to the impacts of unhealthy food environments. These are spaces where they interact with food. Generally, we have made some really good gains in some Caribbean countries on this score, but in general, school food environments continue to promote unhealthy eating with high exposure to ultra-processed foods, as well as pervasive and unregulated marketing of unhealthy foods to children. In tandem with this, food insecurity threatens the affordability of healthy foods, and food labeling, we all know, is inadequate, complicated, and in some cases completely absent. Consequently, many children are consuming diets consisting of high levels of unhealthy fats, sugar, and sodium, and this is contributing to the growing crisis of childhood obesity and non-communicable diseases. Consider this: 1 in 3 Caribbean children are overweight or obese. In Jamaica, children face a double burden of malnutrition. Approximately 9% of children under 5 are overweight. And since 2010, obesity rates have doubled among adolescent boys and have increased by almost 50% in adolescent girls between the ages of 13 and 17. The impact is far-reaching. Childhood obesity can affect the physical and emotional health of our children and puts them at a higher risk of developing non-communicable diseases, especially later in life. Let me pause here to recognize International Women's Day, which is being observed today under the theme, Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress, as a reminder to us that the gender lens must be applied in these discussions. Gender equality remains a great human rights challenge. Women and girls continue to face barriers to accessing critical health and nutrition services, and this can have multi-generational impacts. UNICEF continues to work to transform the food and health systems to improve access to evidence-based information that can improve services for girls and women. As you can see, using a rights-based approach to addressing nutrition challenges is essential on so many levels. This includes the right to implement comprehensive school nutrition policies and the octagonal front of package warning labels to help identify healthier foods for sale and consumption, especially in our schools. All this has to be done with the strong participation of children and youth. We have to be prepared to work with our young people and to listen, truly listen. In this webinar, you will hear from a group of powerful youth advocates. Let us be encouraged and inspired today as they share their experiences and their ideas. We are looking forward to the discussions and the way forward from these discussions. We are committed to completing this journey together with all of you, with the aim to move towards a healthier future for this generation and generations to come. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Condell. A reminder to us that we really do need to be centering children and youth and ensuring their meaningful participation in the work that we do. And so it is my absolute pleasure now to introduce our moderator for the rest of the webinar, Miss Rosanna Pike, who is the Advocacy Officer at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica and such a strong advocate in herself and has facilitated meaningful youth engagement over the length of her career in this space. Rosanna, it is my pleasure to hand over the baton to you.
All right, thank you, Daniel, for that introduction. And to everyone online, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. And welcome again to our session today on Let's Talk About Obesity and the Right to Healthy School Food Environments. We are so happy that so many of you are joining us today and for what will be a wholesome and fulfilling set of discussions. And I myself can't wait to hear from all of our speakers here today. So in my years of advocacy, I have seen that there is so much that needs to be done to reshape our food and nutrition landscape across the region, not just here in Jamaica. And as it relates to our school food environments, there is a drastic need for policies to ensure our children are equipped with the right tools, information, or skills to make healthy choices, right? And working in schools, we see that there is indeed some openness and willingness among school administrators and students themselves to make a difference. But of course, challenges exist where, there might be a lack of political will, in strong industry interference, and sometimes the issue lying with parents and some administrators themselves or teachers, with a lack of knowledge that helps, to pose an issue. Nevertheless, the fight goes on. We must continue the journey. We must persist. And in the end, we are hopeful that we will have all healthy food policies implemented to ensure that we have a better future for our children. So, without further ado, looking at our agenda, today we will have the opportunity to hear directly from our children on their experiences in school food environments, as well as an overview of the Barbados school nutrition policy and Jamaica's journey towards school nutrition policy implementation. And we'll be having a very, very, very good panel discussion with a combination of powerhouses on the link between child's rights and healthy school food environment. Okay, so if you see in the chat, we have a pool of resources that we'll be sharing throughout the webinar. You'll also have the opportunity to raise questions. There is a button there for Q&A. Go ahead to post them throughout the discussions, and we will get to those at the end of all presentations. All right, so enough chit chat. Let's see here on screen. You are seeing our presenters and panelists that we'll be hearing from today. So we have Ms. Nicole Griffith, a public health nutritionist for the Barbados Childhood Obesity Prevention Coalition. Ms. Vanetta Nurse, a nutrition officer for UNICEF Jamaica. We have Shanique Bowden, the Executive Director for the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network. Pierre Kevin Cook Jr., don't be shy to call him Kevin. He's a technical advisor for the Healthy Caribbean Coalition. We have the lovely Mishran Robinson, who is the Youth Advocacy Officer at the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados. Abby Bego, she's the Program Director at Lake Health and Wellbeing. And of course, last but not least, the strong and mighty Sharika Mills. She's an attorney at law and Master of Law student at Georgetown University Law Center. And now let's officially begin with our first feature. So, in November 2023, the Caribbean Child Conference hosted their annual conference in Antigua and Barbuda, and the theme for this session was A Safer Planet for Every Child, striving for a world where children's rights are respected and their voice heard. And this conference has always provided children and youth with a platform to amplify their voices. So, you will now be seeing a feature presentation from the William Knibb Memorial High School, where students share what they would like to see across the region.
I'm an agriculture student. I eat what I grow. I understand the practices of organic farming that help to enhance the quality of our food.
I'm a biology student. I understand the importance of eating healthy to combat non-communicable diseases, such as hypertension and diabetes and heart diseases. So I try my best to eat healthy every day.
I'm an agricultural science student. Of course, I eat what I grow. Did you know that eating unhealthy can also lead to death? So, in the mornings, I like to purchase fruit on my way to school. Do you bring fruits to school? Well, on a regular day, I would usually bring fruits from my home rather than purchasing them at school. Okay. At lunch, I prefer to have a balanced meal, incorporating all the nutrients in my lunch. How about you? In my lunch, I prefer to have a heavier portion of vegetables while also having some carbs and proteins as well. Don't you love eating healthy? I love eating healthy. Doesn't it because of our skin, it really benefits our skin and our body weight and we get ill. That's very true because doing these things every day has really made me feel good about myself over the past year. Yeah. I think more people should practice this type of eating healthy contributes to better memory retention. No, that's why I'm so smart then. We can reduce the intake of fatty foods by limiting the fried products to twice per week, whilst ensuring that fruit and vegetable salads are readily available to schools population.
Healthy foods are also important because they provide essential nutrients for focus and concentration in classrooms.
Limiting salty content food helps students eat healthier and avoid health issues like high blood pressure and heart issues.
At my school, we promote a healthy lifestyle. Physical activities promoted at all grade levels with a whopping 50% of schools, grade 11 and grade 10 cohorts completing physical education at the school level. We should limit the consumption of sugar beverages in schools by only allowing the products with low sugar and fat content.
Hi, my name is George Zanford, and I attend the William Memorial High School. Healthy foods for school is essential for students' well-being and the fostering of the long-term healthy eating habits.
I'm a child as well. And of course, I think water with a sugary things to you.
As a child advocate, I stand for healthy lifestyle, the cornerstone to a prosperous life all the while.
Great. So thank you very much to the Child Research Conference for that amazing video feature. And I mean, now you know when they say a child shall lead him, that video to me, I think it highlights that. I mean, hearing it directly from the youth themselves on what measures they take, what they do to maintain healthy lifestyles, from limiting their consumption of foods high in fat, salt, sugar, drinking sugar-sweetened beverages, practicing gardening, and so on and so forth. I think that is quite impressive. And I'm pretty sure every one of you online who saw that can agree. And I just want all of us as youth just to reflect on your current school environment, your school food environment, if you are going to school, of course. What does it look like currently? And do you feel it's actually a safe space for you to make healthy choices? And if there's something that you would do different to ensure that it is indeed a safe space, for healthier choices, empowering you to make healthier choices, what is it that you would actually change? What is it that you would do, to make it healthier? And as you saw that video, were there any similarities or differences you could identify between your current school food environment, or anything you could relate to from their personal experiences? So I just want you to keep that in mind, all right, as we go along, because we will get back to that eventually, right? So now we're going to go into our next session, but before, so you'll be seeing a map on your screen Here we go. So yes, so now you're seeing that map on your screen. It's a bright, vibrant, pretty map. And you might be wondering, what exactly are we looking at? Or what are we supposed to look for? Is this some sort of activity, right? So this is just to show you or give you an idea of all those countries in the Caribbean community that have implemented a national school nutrition policy as part of their obesity prevention strategy. So as you see the key there, those highlights that have a pencil beside them have implemented a national school nutrition policy or some school policy that regulates the sale and or marketing of unhealthy products in schools, and those with the clocks or timers show that they have some sort of policy being considered or in developmental stages. And just to give you an overview, so we have Bermuda, who has a national school nutrition policy in place since 1997. I'd like to think that they are pioneers when it comes to, school food policies, right? And their policy consists of a whole lot of standards, including the provision of fruits and veg in schools. Even if there's an event that's keeping at the school that provides food, fruits and veg must be made available, and they have to limit the use of foods high in fat, sugars, and salt. Then we also have the Bahamas. So the Bahamas has a compulsory standards for healthy lunch meals in schools. There's also Barbados, who recently got their school nutrition policy implemented, and it was created and approved since May 2022. In Grenada, they also have a school nutrition policy that seeks to develop and implement school-based programs that can impact children's health and well-being, going beyond the classroom education and alter the school environment. There are countries like Trinidad and Tobago that has implemented policies that address some elements of the sale and marketing of ultra-processed products or foods that are considered high in fat, sugar, and salt, even if it's not enforced. There's also Jamaica. So you see the clock beside those two. So in Jamaica currently, we are also in the developmental stages of our policy. So we're just waiting on, further updates because they've done their stakeholder consultations, just waiting on it to be tabled in Parliament and approved for implementation. Fingers crossed, hopefully for the upcoming school year. All right. And I'm pretty sure some of you might be curious as well. I'm seeing some little bottles. So those are just for another policy. Those are fiscal policies, so such as a tax on sugar sweetened beverages. So now, remember when I asked you to consider what changes you'd love to see in your current school food environment or what you do if you had the power to make it healthier? Well, now we have an interesting session for you. So I have two beautiful ladies who will be coming up next, who will share what the possibilities are. I mean, if you were thinking somewhere along the lines such as, policies to transform your current school food environment, and they will also share where some of us are in terms of actual implementation. All right. So I want you also know, if you want to know how your country is doing, the HCC has a tool or a site you can visit. So you can look for that in the chat. It's the HCC Childhood Obesity Prevention Scorecard. You can go ahead, look for your country there to see if your country is making any progress as it relates to a school nutrition policy. So again, without further ado, I want you guys to use the reaction buttons in your chat to help me welcome two beautiful ladies, Nicole Griffith, the public health nutritionist and member of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados' Childhood Obesity Prevention Coalition, and Miss Vanetta Nurse, the nutrition officer for UNICEF Jamaica. And we'll first take Nicole to share the Barbados perspective.
Hi, good morning all. My name is Nicole Griffith, as was said earlier, and I am excited to be here to share this information on where we are and the core components of our policy as it is right now. So let me just first say that our policy has taken a phased approach because there's so many aspects that we need to change in our schools, and there's so many different things that need to be done in order to have those changes to occur. Given that our food environment before the policy was really high in sugar, high in fat, and as much as possible, students really wasn't into the physical activity in the normal form that it was currently being sold to them in. So the objectives of our policy really was to have nutritious foods and beverages. So the selling and serving and promoting of nutritious options and enhancing health and learning and well-being. So now we have this aspect where in schools we are asking, it is supposed to be a case where in classes, students are allowed to have water with them throughout the day. They're allowed to drink water throughout their classes. And they're also given a break between class sessions where we have subject areas that may be going on for 3 or 4 periods. They're allowed to stand and do a very simple exercise on the spot at their desk to help promote the healthy activities that would contribute to their well-being overall. As it relates to the selling of the beverages and selling of snacks, we have a ban currently on sugar sweetened beverages, and also the ones that are currently allowed, we have capped them at, I think they only allowed 24 grams of naturally occurring sugars, and I know that is still a high number. However, we had to work with what we had available in our market, and given our research when we were looking at creating a alternative beverage map and snack list, we recognized that our policy would have had a lot of work to do because our environment really was saturated with things very high in sugar. Even those that were not containing added sugars, they still presented really high amounts of sugar, and the serving sizes were really large. So that was one aspect we had to look at. And then the coordination of the nutrition education, and we integrated the food services and nutrition education, and the National Nutrition Center was the one tasked with this aspect, along with the Heart and Stroke Foundation through the Childhood Obesity Coalition. Went out into schools to do promotions to PTAs, to parent groups, to community town hall meetings. They're currently doing other sessions as well right now. And they really wanted to just promote healthy behaviors in the students and trying to find a way to integrate. So we had like vendor training for those persons who, because in Barbados, we have canteens that are privately owned. And then we have vendors who sell outside schools and who sell in the environment outside of schools. Also, we have the school meal service, which is government owned. And also, there are also persons who are not necessarily legally vendors, but they also apply their trade outside of schools. So we had vendors training with those persons back to back, even before the policy was launched. And even now that the policy is launched, every school year we have been having this vendor training to try to get them up to the standard that we would like them to be at. And here's a part of our first draft of what our beverage and snack map would have looked like. Because at the time when we implemented the alternative snack and beverage map, it was to allow parents to be able to find alternative ways to get foods and to be able to know what they can get. At the time, we weren't permitted to give brands, but as of September this year, we were able to give out the actual brand names. So we had this long haul of where we went into supermarket to try to find these items, and then we evaluated them, and then we put them on this list and we sent it out. And then we had knowledge enhancement. So knowledge enhancement, we try to use things like the Active Kids project, where they had to wear these Fitbits, and we try to show them how the activity would impact them. And then we had these engaging sessions where we increase physical activity. So physical activity had to be increased. So we use things like Hike Day, where every November there's a day allocated for Hike Day, where schools have no academic teaching, and we only have physical activity in different forms that they would like. A next component would be capacity building, where we had find school personnel and parents in the community to support the healthy eating and to increase. So that's where we found advocates, we found parents who came on board, we found teachers who decided that they were going to come on board, and also companies to engage in helping us to reach these goals. And we are still in the process because this is a phased approach. Everybody's not all well there as yet, but we are getting to that point where we are seeing progress. Then we had to motivate schools to actually want to come on board, as it's a policy and it's not something that is by law. So we had to try to find a way to get them to be on board with us. And so we had implemented both of our schools, and we had a campaign launch for that as well. And then we are currently now, which is Matron. I know she's going to speak about this when it gets to her. Matron and her team, they did the Cool School Project, which is currently happening. They're going to schools. They show them how food and nutrition and health is cool and it's not what it was perceived to be before. And so with this project, they are able to share information with children from the nursery to the secondary school level, and in fun ways that they understand the information and they're able to go home and translate this information to their parents. Then we had to engage food services. So we had a nutritional standards where National Nutrition Center, which was placed on them, and they dealt with that aspect along with the help of the Heart and Stroke Foundation as well. And then improving eating environments, that came to the point where we are now trying to get a Vendors Act where vendors now have to follow particular stipulations and they need to be registered. So hopefully we can get that in place. And then we had also now the front of package label warnings that was launched actually this week. So we can get information that people can understand it in a way that they can understand. So then we had projects such as the NCD quiz. We had a debate on the actual school nutrition policy, so we can see how children feel about the policy and what else they would like to see, and the implementation of in the curriculum. So the new food nutrition CSC SBAs have been guided in the way where they have to now implement or place aspects of the food nutrition policy, things that they have to prepare for that examination as well here in Barbados. And then we had to strengthen our partnerships, and we had schools who started raising animals, rearing animals, they planting foods. And this school you can see on my screen right now is is a primary school, and they have been so strong in this, and they had a partnership with with a foundation, and the foundation would have allowed them to give them money to have an entire setup where they had slaughtered animals, they had plants and produce available for sale on a monthly basis. So they are actually running their own scheme to help their community. And then we had the collaboration with the Barbados Water Authority, where we started Water Wednesdays. And now in school, there are 3 days allocated to water, one being Wednesdays for sure, and then other schools can stipulate which other 2 days they were going to use. And then finally, we had the integration of services, support services, where we have the National Nutrition Center, have nutrition officers, and then we have the Heart and Stroke Foundation, which have their youth gym that persons can sign up and join if they believe or they may think they're obese. And we also have the allocated to the Nutrition Center for students, and we also have Camp Pride and Camp Wellness for students or children living with diabetes in the area. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that enlightening presentation, Nicole. And now we invite Ms. Vonetta Nurse from UNICEF Jamaica to share the Jamaican perspective.
Thank you, Rosanna. And please let me know if you can see my screen and if you can hear me properly. Just checking. Yes?
You're good.
Great, thank you. So hi everyone, I'm so pleased to be here to share with you Jamaica's journey towards a national school nutrition policy. Our health specialists would have spoken about the context of high prevalence of overweight and obesity in children and adults, leading to increased non-communicable diseases in Jamaica. And overweight and obesity starts very young, with 8.5% of children under 5 being overweight. And increasing exponentially as they grow into adolescent years. There are also pockets of undernutrition and micronutrient deficiencies, low levels of physical activity in adolescents, with only 23% engaging in physical activity for the recommended time. And of course, unhealthy eating practices, low consumption of fruits and vegetables, and high consumption of ultra-processed foods. So according to the Ministry of Health, 70 to 80% of deaths are caused by non-communicable diseases. 1 in 3 Jamaicans aged 15 to 74 have high blood pressure and 1 in 8 diabetes. The early onset of non-communicable diseases is also a challenge, leading to emotional and financial costs for families and the economy. And of course, childhood obesity, non-communicable diseases also has devastating consequences on children's long-term physical, mental, and educational attainment, undermining their fundamental rights, not just to health, but others that you will hear about today. So the underlying causes are similar in the Caribbean: the nutrition transition towards more ultra-processed foods, low rates of exclusive breastfeeding, but also lack of skills as it relates to good nutrition practices and decision-making skills for parents and children. Food insecurity also challenges the affordability of healthy foods, both prior to COVID-19 and now, in the space where it's become a new norm. And of course, the school environment is a key challenge with pervasive marketing, easy access to low nutrition foods, low physical activity at higher grades. So this National School Nutrition Policy is a joint initiative of the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and is currently in draft stage. Its mission is to promote quality and cost-effective nutritional and wellness services to all children in educational facilities from preschool to secondary levels. And a key goal, well, this may change, but by 2035, 85% of schools should provide dietary choices to complement meals in order to meet the nutritional needs of students. And of course, it's part of a multi-pronged approach to addressing overweight and obesity. So in terms of the status of the policy, in 2019, several measures were already in place as kind of a foundation for the policy. So in 2018, the Jamaica Moves in Schools initiative was launched to promote physical activity and to some extent healthy eating in schools. In 2019, the interim guidelines for beverages in schools was also launched, and it reflected a gradual reduction in the limits, the amount of sugar that was allowable in beverages sold in schools. And that reduction has now come in 2023, it's now 2.5 grams per 100 ml. And the National School Nutrition Policy was then drafted in 2019. Of course, everyone knows what happened in 2020. COVID really shifted the priorities of both the Ministries of Education and Health. Schools were closed. Health had to prioritize to handling this new disease that we all faced. But in 2022, efforts were re-energized for the school nutrition policy. So there were public consultations with principals, concessionaires, parents, NGOs, and manufacturers. And UNICEF and JAN supported the Ministry of Education for the public consultation for students and young people. And now we are at the point of readiness, which is called a white paper in Jamaica. The comments from the consultations are being incorporated into the draft document, and our aim is to see it tabled in Parliament and approved. In 2023, to support and advocate, there was also an Out of Our Schools campaign led by the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, supported by UNICEF, PAHO, and the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network, and some other key partners in this struggle. So the 5 priority areas of the policy are the food services environment. So unhealthy food and drink will be restricted in schools and around schools 200 meters from the school gate. And this is an expansion of the restriction on sugary beverages. More locally grown foods will be used for meals and snacks. So at least 10% of local produce should be used to prepare meals and snacks. And there will be regulations to guide vendors as well as training to support implementation. Secondly, provision of meals to meet nutrition standards. So recipe manuals will be developed based on different nutritional needs of different age, groups and looking at the gender lens as well, because, for example, adolescent girls have different nutritional needs than adolescent boys. There will be a drive to expand school gardens, increasing the link between schools and farms so that it's easier for schools to use the locally grown produce. And of course, regulation of the marketing of unhealthy beverages and food in schools. The third element of the policy will be physical activity. So physical activity is not mandatory past grade 9 in Jamaica. So that will be expanded up to grade 13, where schools will be required to have at least 3 5-minute physical activity breaks and 1 hour of physical activity weekly. And this will be supported by what already exists in the Jamaica Moves in Schools program. And there should also be safe, secure, and suitable areas for students to exercise or be physical generally. There will also be regular age-appropriate health checks and referrals to counseling if necessary, if a child is either underweight or overweight. And schools need to provide access to safe, clean drinking water. Lesson plans, the curriculum will be, looked at to see where those entry points are for nutrition, not just the home and family life education curriculum, but also at the lower levels, there is also social studies, there is also science curriculum, maybe math. So these will be looked at to see if they need to be updated, just to ensure that nutrition education is infused in the curriculum at different points in time. Other key considerations, the policy, as it is written now, is very heavy on rights and equity. Ensuring equitable access to healthy food is an important part of this policy, as well as supporting the social protection programs such as Jamaica's PATH and school feeding program, which aim to improve the nutritional status of the most vulnerable Jamaican students. The implementation is expected to be over 5 years, after which the policy will be reviewed. And the policy actually mentions some of the other supporting policies we are advocating for, such as front of package warning labeling to assist schools to be able to identify healthier foods to be sold in the environment. So the next steps for us as advocates, we need to keep pushing for the approval of the policy by Parliament. We've moved on, but we're still a little bit behind in terms of what we would like to see. And so the advocacy continues to move the needle forward as soon as possible. And this will, of course, take a multi-sectoral approach. UNICEF will be offering implementation support to the ministries of education and health. That is where the rubber meets the road, and we would like to learn from the Barbados experience as well on how we really can ensure that implementation is effective. Other government ministries will have to be involved, such as agriculture, and of course, the youth involvement is absolutely necessary and valuable. We will continue to work with Jan and the Heart Foundation to build the capacity of youth and young people across the island to support the calls for the policy, as well as implementation of the policy when we are at that point. And of course, engage in the parent groups and the faith-based organizations as well. So thank you very much for listening. I think you're on mute, Anna.
My apologies. So there I was chatting away, but thank you both ladies, both Nicole and Vanetta, for such amazing and delightful information, right? So we saw there that, in Barbados, they have their policy encouraging the sale, service, and promotion of healthy options, healthy, nutritious food options. And I love the fact that they tried to, they sought to include vendors and train them, because they actually play a major role in shaping the school food environment, similar for Jamaica. So even though Jamaica they're still yet to implement the actual policy, it's good to know that, we're well on our way. And we have also heard of other policies or initiatives that they have actually started. So the reduction or restriction of sugar drinks in schools, and the Jamaica Moves in Schools program that encourages physical activity to keep our children moving, right? And the big takeaway here, I'm not sure, it might be different for everyone online, but for me, is that when you look at both of them, you see that it's really a whole of society approach. It's not, the onus is not just on one person or one set of individuals, not just the policymakers alone, but it also includes parents and caregivers. So that's going to the home, or school administrators and teachers, the concessionaires, to the vendors, because they actually help to shape the entire school food environment. And that is what we need. All hands on deck. All right. So thank you once more, ladies. And now that we have set the stage, we're about to kick things up a notch. So question or food for thought. Did you know that the pervasive and relentless exposure to emotion-based marketing strategies for unhealthy foods to kids across multiple media, whether it's in front of the TVs or on their tablets or their phones, including in settings where they should be especially protected, such as schools, is actually undermining their rights, undermining child rights to be specific. So yes, this undermines child's rights to healthy food and adequate nutrition, but it also infringes on other rights. And I mean, there's a document, UNICEF has a document, you might get that as a resource later on throughout the discussions that you can read through, and you see how much that one right, it's interrelated to like multiple other rights, right? So without further ado, we're now going to have our panel discussion with that whole combination of powerhouses now, and this discussion will emphasize the importance of a rights-based approach in addressing childhood obesity and advocating for healthy school food environments. So point to note, there are a number of conventions that CARICOM governments have signed on in aim to protect child's rights to health and a healthy school food environment. And these include the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So now we're going to turn to our panelists. So we have the wonderful and the most handsome Mr. Pierre Kevin Cook Jr., the Healthy Caribbean Coalition's technical advisor. We have Sharika Mills, an attorney at law and master's student. Ms. Shanique Bowden, the executive director of the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network. We also have Mishron Robinson, Youth Advocacy Officer of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados, and Abby Bego, Program Manager for Lake Health and Well-Being. Welcome, welcome one and all. And I want to remind our audience, feel free as we go along, put your questions in the Q&A panel and we'll get to them at the end of the session once time allows. And be free to access all resources that we are sharing with you in the chat. So now on to our discussion. So I'll be throwing out my first question, and this is to Pierre. So my question today is, we all have a right. What is it? We all have a right to health in particular. What is it and how does it relate to school food environments?
Thank you very much, Rosanna. I first want to say happy International Women's Day to all the beautiful women who have joined us. The right to health, I think the discussion today kind of framed it very beautifully what exactly we want to see when we speak about the right to health and the protection of the health of our children. The concept really is to ensure that people have access to timely, acceptable, and affordable healthcare. And it also speaks to the quality of healthcare that people might have access to. And it's important also to understand that rights are interconnected and interrelated. So in order for you to have access to the right to health, there are other areas that need to be protected as well. So briefly understanding that, I want to go to what the right to health looks like in the Caribbean. For most of us, our right to health is recognized and found in international treaties. So Rosanna mentioned earlier the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. We have other rights through international covenants and treaties, through our membership in the United Nations. Unfortunately, they're not included in our constitutions, the explicit right to health, but there is room for you to challenge it through the right to life. And we can also find the right to health included in our CARICOM Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. I wouldn't go through specifically what those rights say. There's a document we can share with you, the rights-based agenda, so you can look at that. But what that right to health looks like for children in terms of school food environments is that we need to turn the tide on what's happening. So currently within our schools, and I had a moment to pause and reflect on what's happening within our schools. At least when I was at school, the school food environment was not healthy. So daily, students had access to macaroni pie, chips, chicken, fried foods. And if you can think about it, every day you're going to school, and if you are to purchase food at school, what is available is fried chicken, macaroni pie. So there are lots of cheese, lots of oils, and then there is chips, fries, nothing healthy. So you go to school 5 days a week. You go to school from 8 a.m. to, let's say, 2, 3 p.m. And all you're consuming every single day, or at least all you can have access to, are these unhealthy foods. That is what we mean when we speak about the right to a healthy food environment. We want to shift that. So in Barbados, in Trinidad, you heard it earlier in the presentations that we've been looking at ensuring there's more access to water within the classrooms, there's access to healthier food options. And we're really looking at that connection between ensuring children have the right to the highest attainable standard of healthcare, which means that we also need to ensure the environments that they're learning in can support them having access to that highest attainable standard of health. So it really means that as a whole of society approach, we have to ensure that between what's happening at the home, in the schools, right outside of the schools, it all needs to be able to encourage students to eat and participate in a healthy lifestyle. So it means more physical activity. It means governments need to step up to the plate. It means parents, grandparents, neighbors, community members all need to play a role in ensuring that children have access to the highest attainable standard of healthcare. So I see my time is up. I'll be able to answer some questions in a bit, but I want you to think of the right to health as ensuring that children, people within our communities have the access to healthy food environments so they can make healthy food choices, and also that they have access to the highest attainable standard of healthcare, and also that we ensure their preventative measures to ensure children don't develop obesity at a young age. I'll stop there for now.
Thanks so much for such salient points, Pierre. We're now going to turn over to Sharika. And our question for you today, Sharika Mills, is a major concern for us as youth advocates is the marketing of ultra-processed products to children. Can you describe what this may look like and how it threatens the rights of a child? Relatedly, children have a right to benefit from scientific progress. So evidence plays a key role here. How can industry infringe on this right, and how can we ensure this right is fulfilled, especially in creating a healthy food environment?
Okay, that's a lot, so I hope I can do it justice in this short time. But I think Pierre started us off, really nicely talking about the right to health. And the right to health also extends to its determinants. So we talk a lot about social determinants of health in terms of having increased access and availability of healthy foods in the school environment, and also reducing access and availability to unhealthy foods, just the same. But also we have to talk about the commercial determinants of health, which would take into consideration what industry is doing to interfere with the right to health, and advertising and marketing both in the school environment and outside of the school environment. I think that's the clearest example that we have of how industry also shapes our food environment and affects our right to health. And so advertising and marketing both as directed to children, but also that children are exposed to as part of the family, as part of communities, as part of societies. As I said before, that's the clearest example we have of commercial interests basically conflicting with public health interests in schools. And in traditional media, we can see this through what children are seeing on TVs, billboards outside of schools, at the supermarkets as well. But also in the school environments, we have flyers in the school cafeteria, also in classrooms, on the playground, at sporting competitions, we can see businesses advertising unhealthy food. But then also digitally, we've seen a lot of unhealthy food advertising on social media, on websites like on YouTube, but also on digital education platforms. So even during the pandemic, when students had to be online, we saw some of that unhealthy food marketing on those digital platforms. And some of the rights that are implicated, briefly, I mentioned just now, like on playgrounds, that implicates the right to play that children have, but also the right to information, which is critical for the right to food in so many aspects. And so firstly, children should be educated about food and nutrition. So at a minimum level, what it means to be healthy and what that means about having a healthy diet, what exactly constitutes a healthy diet. But the right to have information also includes information about what's in the food that you're consuming to enable informed purchase and consumption choices. And children in particular have to be able to easily understand, but also accurately perceive the nutritional value of food. And that's one of the main reasons, as we spoke about before, it's really important to have front of pack warning labels. You asked specifically about the right to benefit from scientific progress and its applications, and I think that can go two ways. And so on one hand, we have evolving information about ultra-processed products and the harm that this causes, both for people and for the environment. And so there should be some regulations to manage the production of ultra-processed products, but also the consumption of these products. And on the other hand, we have a wealth of evidence about how effective healthy food policies are, including school nutrition policies, front-of-package warning labels, also taxation to reduce unhealthy food consumption. And so if we are really supposed to have this right to benefit from scientific progress and its applications and evidence that is formed free from conflicts of interest, it means that the government definitely has obligations to make sure that these policies are in existence. I'll stop there, and hopefully there will be some questions that I can answer.
All right, thank you so much for that, Sharika. You did tremendously well. So I have one question here, and it will be thrown out to Shanique Bowden, Mishron Robinson, and Abby Bego. But we'll start with Shanique. So Shanique, you have the right to participate in youth have the right to participate in matters that affect them. How has the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network help to facilitate children's right to meaningful participation in calling for healthy school environments or healthier communities in general?
Yes, thank you, Rosanna. I don't think I can actually see the timer when I'm in here, but I'll try to be quick. Oh, I'm seeing it now. Okay, great. So Jamaican Advocacy Network, JAN, is a youth-led organization here in Jamaica, and we've been advocating for the rights of adolescents and youth since 2006 rather, but specifically around nutrition policies since 2021. And I want to share quickly on 3 things that we are doing to ensure that young people are participating in the different processes. 2 primarily, and if I do have time, I'll share on the 3rd one. So, yeah. Okay. So I think Vanetta would have also alluded to it in her presentation, but there was the youth consultation on the school nutrition policy that happened in September 2022 here in Jamaica. And I think the best person to kind of tell you just very briefly how that went is one of the participants in this video.
All right. In some schools, they have a day where you only drink water. I want every school to have this as a mandatory thing. 1 day out of the week, just straight water.
Only water.
No sugar-rich drinks, no nothing like that. Just water.
All right. Okay. All right. So how do you tell me how the water day work for you? How is it for you?
All right. In my class,
yes.
1 day out of the week, no one can bring anything sugary to school. Nothing. Nothing at all. Especially on days when you do physical education. Because the youth isn't going to do a lot. Yes.
Awesome.
All right.
So basically we had students from across the island, over 600 students, both in person and online, participating in the consultation. And one specific thing that we had done was also a U-Report poll where we saw high support for the policy. We have, 98% of students here saying that they do want to learn about nutrition and how to prepare healthy meals, as well as we saw over 95% of them saying that the ensuring proper nutrition for students should be a priority for the government. And then secondly, what we also did was we prepared a 2-page brief on the 49-page policy to ensure that students would be able to just get the most pertinent information for them. And so it looked a little like this in the sense that we just pulled out some of the key information that we think may be most useful for them to really understand what it is the policy was about and how it is that the policy would help them in the future. And very quickly as well, one of the key things that we think is very important to ensure that students and youth can participate meaningfully in this process is that their capacity needs to be built. And so we've had several capacity building sessions since 2021. with another one happening tomorrow as well, where we focus on just sensitizing them about healthy food policies, including front of package warning labels, sensitizing them on advocacy strategies and techniques that they can use to employ in their advocacy, so they can write their own letters, they can do their own media interviews and that sort of thing. And I see that my time is at capacity, so I'll kind of stop from there.
Thank you so much for that, Shanique. And we now throw that same question to Mishron from the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados. I'll just repeat just to ensure you have it, Mishron. So it's youth have a right to participate in matters that affect them. How has the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados helped to facilitate children's rights to meaningful participation in calling for healthy school food environments or communities?
Good afternoon, everyone. I would just like to start with setting the scene with that old adage, we are what we eat. But most importantly, we are also a strong reflection of our environments. And what do our environments look like? Our school environments, our school food environments, there's these unhealthy sale of some types of beverages, some types of foods that are not in line with the National School Nutrition Policy. Our children deserve the best, and they deserve the best in education, the best in healthcare, and the best healthy school environments that we can possibly provide. They deserve to not only be interrupted or denied a sound education or good quality of life simply because of the greedy drive for profits due to the sale and marketing of unhealthy foods in our schools. When I was at the Christchurch Foundation School back in 2010 at secondary school, I remember taking the walk up the hill, and there was the sale of lots of fried chicken, lots of baked foods, lots of fries, and that's on my way to school. As soon as I would get into the school gates, there was the sale of pizza back in the day, and this is before the National School Nutrition Policy was implemented. As we are a part of our environments, it is important for our students to see a change. And through the implementation of our National School Nutrition Policy, we have been seeing a change in how those environments look compared to 2010 when I was at school to today in 2024. Because we have been having capacity building sessions with school vendors, we've had training sessions facilitated by the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados with the Parent Teachers Associations of various schools. We've had requests to come in to speak to the parents. Our environments are not only physical, and we are the ones who contribute to what our school food environments look like. The buck actually stops at us. It stops at parents, it stops at vendors, it stops at principals and teachers who facilitate what these school food environments look like. I can paint a picture of what happened before the implementation of the school's nutrition policy. The government organized for 2 stakeholder consultations. It invited stakeholders from civil society, some of the teachers, some of the vendors involved for 2 rounds of meetings. Coming out of those consultations, there were 2 groups to get into details about what each area of the National School Nutrition Policy would look like. And it was produced by a consultant, and then persons were asked to review those 2 sections of the policy. The Ministry of Health and Wellness then took it forward to be presented to Cabinet. And although there were consultations done to students before, the policy was then led by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And then in May of 2002, the policy was created and approved by Cabinet and was rolled out on Wednesday, February 15th, 2023, which was a really big win for us. We continue to engage with our students through the facilitation of the whole school nutrition tour and initiative of some of our advocates within the Childhood Obesity Prevention Coalition, which is a part of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados. Up to today, we visited early morning. We went all the way to the country in Welchman Hall, St. Thomas, where we presented our package regarding the whole school nutrition tour to the entire school at the Holy Innocents Primary School. For each week, we're targeting 2 schools. We're hoping to visit 8 schools every month, 2 schools per week in any given month, to present for the continual implementation of the National School Nutrition Policy. So within the whole school nutrition tour, we would start with the presentation, a definition of what health is, Then we take them through an exercise session. And this morning was especially important for us because we had the support of the Member of Parliament for the area, Cynthia Ford in St. Thomas. And she was very excited to see what we had ongoing where the Cool School Nutrition Tour is concerned. So that is ongoing. We also continue to engage with those in civil society. We have a number of partnerships. The Childhood Obesity Prevention Coalition actually has partnerships with over 30 civil society organizations. We would normally go to schools if called upon. We go out into the community, and we continue sharing that knowledge of what the school nutrition policy entails. What has changed though, prior to me coming on as the youth advocate here with the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados, we were approaching the students and having this engagement prior to the policy actually being implemented. So we are giving some consideration to what our package looks like regarding the Cool School Nutrition Tour and sharing that information on the National School Nutrition Policy because the policy is now implemented. So the heirs that are listening now are not necessarily the heirs prior to the policy being implemented. So we have some suggestions in keeping regarding sharing more lived experiences of those who we're sharing this information with, of the students within the school setting, because obviously we were sharing information prior to, even knowing how the policy would work. What I would suggest to Jamaica and other countries who are still working towards having that policy implemented, hopefully that policy will be implemented sometime in the near future, imminently. It would be good to continue with education campaigns after the policy has been implemented. You still have to put in that work in terms of engaging with the school students across the country. It is if you think of a wheel, you have
continuous process.
It's a continuous process, yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for that, Mission. We're a bit tight for time, but I do hope if anyone has any questions, or we can finish that, in the Q&A. But we'll now go to Abby. Abby, so same question for you. Youth have a right to participate in matters that affect them. How has Lake Health and Wellbeing helped to facilitate children's rights to meaningful participation in creating healthy school food environments or communities?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Rosanna, for that question. And thank you also to the Healthy Caribbean Coalition for the opportunity to participate in this panel discussion. So just for those that don't know, Lake Health and Wellbeing, we're a public health NGO based in St. Kitts, and we get involved in the prevention and control of NCDs through a range of different activities. And that also includes advocating for evidence-based policies. So here at Lake Health and Wellbeing, we do firmly believe that children and young people have the right to actively participate in shaping the policies that not only impact them today, but will significantly influence the future that they will inherit. So as NGOs, as all of us on this panel, or three of us on this panel, as NGOs, we're very well placed to ensure that young people can participate in the policy development process, but also in advocacy efforts calling for the introduction of these policies. So for us, in pursuit of this belief that young people have the right to participate, we have implemented several initiatives to provide a platform for youth engagement. So I just want to share two key ways that we've accomplished this over the last few months. So firstly, we ran a youth health advocacy initiative over the past 6 to 7 months or so, which has actually just come to an end at the end of February. So in this program, we recruited two wonderful, dedicated young individuals, so Fiona Zhang and Janicia Pemberton, and they have just done a fabulous job. So we recruited them to collaborate with us to advocate for various health policies, including a sugar-sweetened beverage tax, a school nutrition policy, and front-of-package warning labels. So we started the process really with training. So we provided training to both of our youth health advocates. And we're really pleased with the ACC partnered with us in terms of the training of our youth health advocates. And Pierre also participated in that training, and we're very appreciative of that. So through this training, what we aimed to do was to empower and build the capacity of our youth health advocates, because obviously, if we want them to be advocating, we need to build their capacity, make sure that they're empowered with the information, skills, and technique to advocate on our behalf. So over the last few months after the training, our youth health advocates have been very active in advocating for healthy food policies. So for example, we encourage them to write to cabinet members, including our Prime Minister, who's also the Minister of Health, to highlight the concerns that young people have around certain policies and interventions that they believe need to be introduced. Our youth health advocates also met with our Attorney General and presented to our Attorney General about sugar, sweet and beverage taxation and their thoughts around this policy, and encouraging the government to introduce SSB taxation as a really effective method of reducing childhood obesity. Our youth health advocates also presented to NGOs in St. Kitts and Nevis and really provided insight on how they can meaningfully engage young people in the work that they do. Our youth health advocates right now have just conceptualized and developed all on their own. They wrote the scripts, they came up with the concept of a healthy food policy campaign. And this campaign involved them basically developing videos, developing a flyer, looking at a press release, and all of that has come out. And they were advocating for the 3 policies that I mentioned before, and they've just done a really wonderful job. They've also traveled to Jamaica and Barbados to really spread the word around the work that they're doing. I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to very quickly mention the second thing that we've been doing. So we worked with a youth volunteer, Shira Watley, who also worked with our youth health advocates to organize a symposium, which was youth-led. And that symposium brought together young people from schools, as well as policymakers, high-level policymakers, to have a discussion about healthy food policies, including a school nutrition policy, SSB tax, and front of package warning labels. And through that symposium, we were able to facilitate an environment where young people could hear directly from policymakers, ask their questions, and actively engage in meaningful discussion around these policies. So I am running out of time, and so those are just 2 ways that we've allowed young people to participate in the process and help them really achieve their right to participation. So thank you so much, and hopefully I'll be able to take some questions afterwards.
All right, thank you so much for that, Abby, and thanks to everyone, all our panelists who gave, such beautiful responses. I mean, what a wealth of information that has just been shared, eh? I mean, so we saw coming out, the basic thing, that principle we see here, that human rights in general depend on healthy and sustainable food environments or food systems, whichever way you want to put it, and policies to help shape these healthy policies are needed to help shape these healthy and sustainable food environments. And we see that youth have rights. So youth, you have a seat at the table. You deserve a seat at the table in so many ways. So don't be scared to lend your voice and call on your policymakers to do what's right to create healthier environments, because at the end of the day, it affects you as youth. You, right? We're affected at the end of the day, and we are the future. So we deserve these policies to create healthier and sustainable environments to ensure that we can carry on the legacy, right? So we are almost at the end, and now we'll take some time to answer a few questions from our audience online. So I'm going to start with those that were shared in the Q&A panel and the chat. So first, I see here, so I'm going in time order. The first one was, good day, this is directed to... Okay, so it might be 2 panelists or presenters before. So this one is for Nicole Griffith. In terms of enforcement of the healthy policies in schools, what guidelines have been put in place to limit the content of the meals and drinks for those students who bring their meals from home packed in lunch bags? For example, placing drinks into bottles and packing of fried foods in lunch kits.
But at this point in Barbados, thank you for the question. And at this point in Barbados, when it comes to the packaging of foods, when it comes to the snacks and the beverages, if they pour them into a drink bottle, our teachers are not stipulated to search those bottles and smell and see what type of drink it is. But in terms of if it's a packaged product, most time, if it's not something that's going to impact them, say if it's not going to make them hungry or if they're not going to go starving, then they are asked to place it back in their bags, and they will be given an alternative that they can use during that period of time. In terms of the fried chicken and so in the bags, in our food environment in Barbados, I am going to be quite honest, it's very seldom that you find a large amount of our population rely on either school meals or purchasing food from our canteens. So if you have like a one-off child or two children who may have challenges, most times it is usually cooked food. And so we didn't see it as a great concern in terms of them having fried chicken in their lunch boxes. And so it will be a very low level if it is that case. And again, it's usually canteens. As Mitchell said, when you're walking to school, it's the people who sell food on the outside, and it's the school meals department, which is mandated by government in terms of the school meals department.
All right, thanks so much for answering that for us, Nicole. So the next question, it was from the chat, and then we go to Miss Pat Thompson's question, which came after. I kind of wish to ask, how can parents be main target group when it comes to promoting healthy lifestyle for children? Lifestyle behaviors are learned from whom? In families, children directly adopt parents' lifestyle, their eating habits. So I guess that's a general question to anyone who wants to answer.
I wanted to hop on this one. I saw the question early and I thought it interesting. And I think I would like for Mishran to share a bit on this. Children are not responsible for their health. The responsibility for protecting the health of children belongs to their parents, their community, their governments. The governments are the ones who are the duty bearers to protect their right to health. So when we speak about ensuring a child's right to health and ensuring they have full access to this right to health, we're really speaking about the responsibility of governments, parents, and community members to ensure children are protected. In the same way that we know that protecting children from abuse is the responsibility of the parents, governments, and community, and ensuring the right to health, it is not the responsibility of the child. Often we see children who are obese and overweight, and we say insensitive things like, he should go and run boat, or he should go exercise, or that child should be playing, that child should be on a treadmill. But it's not the fault of the child for their weight. The child doesn't feed themselves. The child doesn't wake up in the morning and go to the supermarket and buy the groceries and put it on the table and cook the meal. Their parents do that, or their community members do that, or they eat at school. So it's important for us to educate parents about healthy eating, healthy foods. It's important for us to educate the school meal providers about healthy eating, healthy foods, healthy food environments. It's important for us to educate grandmothers about healthy eating, healthy food environments, churches and community members at large. And that exactly is the work that the Heart and Stroke Foundation in Barbados is doing. It's the work that the Heart Foundation is doing in Jamaica, going out and educating parents and those community stakeholders on why they have a responsibility to protect the rights of children to health and how they can ensure that children have full access to their right to health. So when we speak about the school food environment, we're pinpointing parents as one of the key stakeholders because, again, a child is not responsible for feeding themselves. And that is where I think we need to start that discussion.
Thanks for that, Pierre. Another question we have is coming from Patricia Thompson. For children to bring water to school to last the full day, parents would need to send about 3 bottles for each child. How do we deal with the extra plastic bottles that are poisonous to their bodies? Should the government not provide potable water in each school instead so that children can drink the pipe water or at least pay for the water to give the schools in glass containers?
I don't want to hop on again, but I saw the question and again, I had some thoughts about it. Sending the child to school with 3 plastic bottles of water is solving one issue, but creating another problem. Health and climate change, health and the environment are closely linked topics. And so we don't want to ensure or try to ensure that child is drinking water at the expense of the environment. As I said before, rights are interconnected and interrelated. Again, the work that Mishran and Heart and Stroke Foundation has been doing and the work that we've generally been doing in this space is to call for within schools for children to have access to safe drinking water. So Mishran shared earlier that they went out and a water cooler was donated. So those are the kind of things that we're asking for. The suggestion is for there to always be available and accessible to children, safe drinking water. So whether it is from the tap, if water is potable, for children to have access to drinking that. And yes, there is a responsibility in governments to ensure that within schools, children have access to the bare minimum thing, which is safe and healthy drinking water and safe and healthy food or food choices. So parents may also choose to do something a little more creative and find nice bottles that children can drink water from. I recently, bought into the phase and got a Stanley cup, and all of a sudden I want to drink 40 ounces of water 3 times a day. So there are fun and creative ways that you could get children to be encouraged to drink water, and it doesn't necessarily have to be sending them with 3 plastic bottles a day. You could find reusable ways, but there's also responsibility for governments to ensure the water is accessible at the schools. So you may just need 1 bottle, but you may need the ability to refill that at the school itself.
Yeah,
and just to add to that as well, so I guess we also need the policies around climate action. So we do need governments to really seriously think about the banning of single-use plastics, which would also enforce and support that action as well. So fully endorse the fact that we do need to have portable drinking water available in all schools. We need children to be bringing in their reusable water bottles as well. And we need to do the education around that. I think we need to do the education between the link between climate change and health, so that we can create really a strong environment, both for health and both for protecting the environment as well.
I'd like to also add that, we've been blaming industry a lot for their sale and marketing of unhealthy foods within schools and beverages as well. But I think this might be an opportunity. Earlier in my presentation, it was saying that we had the donation of a water fountain. That was not the first donation. There were other schools that I've observed within the last 2 years who've made donations to water fountains. So maybe we can have the interjection of industry to also partner in terms of donating water fountains to some of these schools. As part of the Cool School Nutrition Tour, when we're going to the schools, the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados, we also give donations of water bottles to many of these schools across Barbados as well. So one, I would say it is important for us to also, have the partnership of industry to also make donations of water bottles or water fountains where possible within the school system.
All right, great. Thank you, guys. So we're trying to keep the webinar at our time limit. So we were scheduled to end at 11:30 Jamaica time, or 12:30 AST. But I'm just gonna do one last question. For the other questions, or where we will go ahead to respond, we'll have one of our panelists or presenters respond in the chat and address them to you. But the final question, it was coming from Wabito. They asked, can mainstream media be used to promote healthy lifestyle behaviors through advertisement or billboards? I mean, this should be an easy one. Anyone could answer. Anyone want to grab that?
I think definitely. Media has to be one of our strongest partners in order for us to get the messages out there around healthy eating and also helping us to advocate for the policies. So I think there are many ways that we can do about this. We ourselves could empower the media with the information that they need to really get the messages out there. And then for us, we also need to work with the media to really introduce engaging educational campaigns that will reach the public, because we do have to compete with a lot of unhealthy messages that are out there. So we ourselves need to sort of bombard the media with a lot of messaging around healthy eating and healthy food policies that are needed. So definitely the media is going to be like the most important partner that we can collaborate with on this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. So before we hand over for the closing remarks, I just want each panelist to just go ahead, within 10-second takeaway for the entire session for our audience to hear. So one key takeaway from each panelist.
I guess we'll go in the order that we've spoken. My key takeaway would just be children are not responsible for their health. Children are not responsible for feeding themselves. This is why it's a whole society approach. This is why we need policy. This is why we need governments. This is why we need parents and community members to be on board in ensuring that children are protected in the most comprehensive way and that they have access to the best, safe, and most nutritious form of food within their school environments and their general food environments.
I'd say that my takeaway is that even though we acknowledge that we each have a role to play as individuals, that we should always remember that policies and that government intervention definitely does a lot to shape the environments that we exist in. We won't individually be able to tackle the industry. Some of these issues are too huge for us to do with each person acting on their own. And so we definitely need to also, while we are talking about the individual interventions, remember that policy and legislation will always play a very important role, and that the government does have obligations to create these policies and this legislation. So,
for me, not so much a key takeaway, but in terms of a reiteration of the necessary need to ensure that for children to participate in the processes, you have to give them the information in a way that they can appreciate it and that is understandable to them. So you have to really break down what this policy means in a very tangible way that a 6-year-old can understand and a 16-year-old can understand. So it requires a very multifaceted approach to ensure that we're being very accessible in the language and methods that we're using.
Yeah, I would also like to add that we are what we eat, and we are also, most importantly, a strong reflection of our environments. And it's important for us to work hand in hand with policymakers to transform the environments that our children are being raised within.
Okay, I mean, I guess I don't have anything like groundbreaking to add because everybody has said it all. But in terms of participation, I do think that when we're thinking about participation of young people, we need to ensure that that participation is meaningful and thoughtful, that we've thought through how we want young people to participate. And it's not just a tick box exercise where we're just saying, okay, well, just bring some young people to a room. And no, it needs to be meaningful. We need to listen to them, listen to their concerns, and really implement what it is that young people are telling us that their concerns about and that their recommendations are. So I think just to end with the fact that it is an all of society approach, but young people need to be at the heart of that approach as well. So thank you.
Okay, very quick. I just want us to remember that even though as we are fighting to launch policies and that and in case where some of our policies have already been launched, that we must still continue to fight. We must still continue to bargain for implementation to be done correctly, monitoring to be done, and that we all continue to keep it as a full circle approach, because as long as we draw off from monitoring and implementation and advocacy, we will all fall back to where we were at the beginning before we started our launches and our fighting for the same launches that we want for these policies.
All right, thank you so much. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, coming from all our advocates across the region. And before I hand over, I just want to let Wabito had another question in the chat, and then there was one from Osanor Claire and an anonymous attendee. If you all want to leave your contact information, where one of our presenters or panelists will be free to, send you the response, or throughout the chat, they will go ahead to answer for you. So now I'm gonna hand over to Daniel Walwyn, Advocacy Officer, the Healthy Caribbean Coalition, and Ms. Vanessa Nurse, Nutrition Officer for UNICEF Jamaica, to bring the closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Rosanna. That was fantastic. Thank you so much to all of our panelists and presenters, and to you, audience members. I was going to give a summary, but the panelists in their final comments did that perfectly for me in a really, really impactful way. So I won't have to do that again. So my job here is really, again, to thank you. We heard really impactful remarks from Dr. Christine Chin and Ms. Condell. Rosanna, as always, was a fantastic moderator, so please show your appreciation for Rosanna. Our presenters, Vanetta and Nicole, for really giving us an overview of what has been implemented, what is to be implemented. I'm manifesting that, and kind of the lessons learned in each direction. Our panelists, Shanique, Mishran, Abby, Pierre, Sharika, for your insightful comments. I feel like for each right, I know we didn't have time to explore it as we would have liked to, but with each right, we could have had our own webinar on its own. So maybe that's something that we can look into. Of course, to the back end, the HCC team, Maisha, Sheena, Doriel in particular, who is helping with tech. Thank you so much. The Caribbean Child Research Conference team, particularly Tony, Marie, Cornwall, thank you so much for your ongoing support. And of course, for starting us off with that beautiful video of the children and youth in their environment. I think that was the great tone to start with because they were speaking about the importance of a healthy food environment and also the value that they had for that. So I'm hoping that, again, I'm manifesting that and hoping that we can replicate that throughout the Caribbean. And of course, to UNICEF Jamaica for their support. We couldn't do it without you. And so with this, I'm actually going to turn it over to Vanetta. I'm hoping that she can hop on to lead us with our final charge. Vanetta?
I'm here. I'm on, Danielle and team. You know, I love you all. Thank you so much to the panelists. Such a fantastic discussion this morning. So I'm just gonna do the final thoughts. So what we've been speaking about today is so important. Access to healthy foods is not a privilege, but a fundamental human right. By advocating for this right, we can make a tangible difference in the lives of Caribbean people. So we must act urgently and decisively to address malnutrition in all of its forms by implementing policies to improve food environments and that also guarantee equitable access to adequate nutrition and health. This has to be done with a whole of society approach and the strong participation of children and youth. So I encourage you all, let us take what we have learned and commit today to being a force of change for all Caribbean children and young people for generations to come. Thank you and have a wonderful day, everyone.
And happy International Women's Day. We look forward to seeing you once again.
Same to you. Same to you and to all the wonderful women advocating for healthy environments.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.